one thing I am sure of as a leader, that when you have a team that is not unified, not all dancing to the same sheet of music, not all aligned and heading in the same direction, it is almost impossible to create a productive, profitable environment that people love working in and that the customer loves doing business with. And yet very few teams are actually unified. People get away with it all the time. They seem to out-earn their stupidity on this subject. It's crazy. And I have looked at unity and studied the power of unity for a very long time. The power of synergy, the power of when 3 people are agreed on something, when 5 or more are agreed on something, and we're all aimed at that direction, and we're all pulling out all the emotional and spiritual stops to cause it to happen. It's amazing what you can pull off with a team that's doing that. And I really don't know, after 30 years of doing this, what creates unity. But what I do know, and what I recognized a long time ago, is what destroys unity. And one of the things we teach in EntreLeadership are the 5 enemies of team unity. And what I have discovered at Ramsey, and many of you have discovered after I taught it to you, that when you fight back with everything that's within you against the 5 enemies of unity, when the enemies of unity are all put outside the walls of your building, then unity will occur. But these things they're poison, they're acid in the system, and as long as it's in the system, you're going to struggle. The first of the 5 enemies of unity is poor communication. When the right hand doesn't know what the left hand is doing, you can be guaranteed somebody's pissed off. It frustrates things. It's hard to move forward. And when people don't know what's going on, they will write a script in their head or with their mouth that makes the situation much worse than it really is. So communicate, 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 communicate. Over communicate. Over share. Share your story with your team. Collect weekly reports from your team so you know what's going on with your team. Push through all of these things. Absolutely vital. Keep talking, keep pushing. Have staff meetings. Have anything you can do to create wonderful communication. It's absolutely necessary. And have something like a vision statement. Have something like a mission statement. This is who we are. When we're not doing this, we're not a we. This is who we are. Communicate, 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 communicate. If things are going bad, tell the truth. Tell people what's going on. Now, don't make them worse. Don't be super negative ninny about it. Don't be Debbie Downer, but tell them, hey, we're not profitable this month because we had this problem. Or when things are going great, tell people. Tell them what's going on. Tell them about the future. Tell them what you believe about what's going to happen and what's happening, where we're going from here. Communicate, 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 communicate. George Bernard Shaw said the biggest illusion of communication is that it has actually occurred. And Andy Stanley used to say, you have to tell people something 21 times before they hear it. Talk about everything over until you're sick of it, over and over and over and over again. The second enemy of unity is gossip. We have a core value at Ramsey that we have a 0 tolerance for gossip. It's not actually true. We actually will have a little tolerance. We'll warn you one time before we fire you. Hand your negatives up. You're going to have negatives. If you weren't here pushing things, if you weren't here moving things around, if there wasn't friction, you probably wouldn't have a job. So expect problems, expect frustrations, expect speed bumps. And when you have a problem, not if you have a problem, hand your negatives up to someone in leadership that can do something about it. Don't spread your negatives all around. If you hand your negatives down or spread them around, we will warn you one time. And then we will say, you can't gossip and be here. And you can't talk negatively about other people. You can't do anything. You can talk to leadership about anything. You can vent there. You can't be belligerent, but you can bring in a concern. You can talk about this situation with this person. You can this relationship breakdown. Anything you want to do, and so we're going to fire you if you gossip at Ramsey. And by the way, if you were to take a poll or a survey, which we have done, of the people at Ramsey, it is one of their favorite reasons for working here. They work in a non-gossiping environment because gossip destroys the environment. And the worst form of gossip, in my mind, is where you're running the company down, you're running the leadership down, you're running the ownership down. And my friend Henry Cloud says, I don't understand people pee in their own cereal and then gripe because it tastes bad. You work there. This is where your money that feeds your family comes from. Your children, have food because of this place, and then you are tearing down the place? What kind of moron are you? I might not even warn you once for that one. I might just fire you for that one because that's not only gossip, it's disloyalty, and it's a lack of integrity. But, depending on the situation and how extreme and so forth, we're there. But, well, I hate this or I hate that or whatever. That's fine. Talk to leadership about it in a non-belligerent way, and you're safe to do that here. But we have a zero gossip policy at Ramsey. That simple. The third enemy of unity is unresolved disagreements. Where you have a disagreement with someone has two people on your team have a disagreement, and they do not come to closure, healthy conflict, mental health closure on that disagreement, it just boils and festers inside and becomes a splinter in the organization and eventually infects everything because it will spill out of their mouth as gossip eventually. It'll spill out of their mouth as some kind of negative situation. So teach the idea that good organizations, my friend Pat Lencioni talks about this, the best organizations learn how to do conflict well. It's mental health. It's organizational mental health to learn how to do conflict well. We do a lot of conflict at Ramsey, but we're not destroying the human beings that are involved. We're destroying bad ideas. We argue about which play to call to win the Super Bowl. We do not argue about, whether so-and-so is capable or not. That's a different discussion, and that's not an argument. That's deciding whether somebody can stay or not based on competency. But this idea that everybody can disagree, everybody can not like each other, everybody can disrespect the value system of the other person and still have productivity and still have unity is crazy. So you got to have difficult conversations. You've got to bring stuff out. You've got to talk about it. I had one person come in my office and say, well, I need to tell you this about so-and-so, but you can't tell them where it came from. I mean, you don't need to tell me anything then. If you can't stand behind your words, then you don't need to come in my office and tell me something. You're just whining. So if you don't feel strongly enough that this matters to the good of the person you're talking about, the good of the company, the good of the organization, that you can stand by your own words, then you don't need to utter those words. That's cowardly. Because I've got to go deal with it once you tell me. And I'm not going to go deal with it with an anonymous source. How cowardly is that? An anonymous source came to me and told me that you were doing, oh, bull. What a wuss. So, don't come in my office and tell me that. Just say, hey, got a problem with so-and-so. I heard so-and-so. I don't know how to talk to him about that. Can you help me? What do we do? Say, I'll talk to him about it. I'm going to tell him that you heard this, and I may call you back in here. And we may all sit here and talk about it. But we're going to have a resolved conflict, not an unresolved disagreement when we finish, 100% of the time. Had another lady came in and she said, well, I've got to talk to you about my leader. They're incompetent this way. They're incompetent this way. And I said, yeah, I understand. And I appreciate you bringing that to me. And actually, a couple of points you brought up are not right, and I told her why. And a couple of points you brought up are right, and we're working with your leader on that. And we're, no one in the building is perfect, but we're working with them. Thank you for bringing it to me. I appreciate that, and know that this is a project that's underway. Well, 3 weeks later, she's in my office with the exact same issues. And I'm like, I told you we're working on this. And she's like, well, it's still there. And I'm like, well, I know it's still there. It was 3 weeks. It doesn't, it's not like you're going to fix this in 20 minutes here. Ride with us on this ride. This is a process where we don't shoot our wounded. We work with folks and bring them back to wholeness and move on to the next thing. I said, and 3 weeks later, she's back in my office again. And I said, look, now you're not questioning that person's competence. Now you're questioning my competence. Bringing the same thing in here 3 times after I've explained it to you is now you're saying I'm not competent because I haven't fixed it at the speed at which you think it should be fixed. So now you and I are starting to have a problem because you can't think I'm incompetent and work here. That won't be okay. I'm the owner. And she ended up leaving. Which is okay. It's perfect. That was a resolved disagreement. The fourth one is lack of shared purpose. The team needs to know what your desired future is. We help you with that in EntreLeadership. The team needs to know what your defining objectives are. That we help you with that in EntreLeadership. We work you through all of these processes. The team needs to know what's going on and be aligned, and this is where we're going, and this is how we're going to get there. These are the processes. And this is what winning looks like. This is what the end of the year, we need this many numbers on this revenue, on this sales units, whatever it is, and we're all aligned on that. We have a shared purpose. We're not running in 14 different directions. If you run in 14 different directions, all you do is destroy the wagon. You don't pull the wagon. You just tear it apart. So we have to pull the wagon up the hill, and we have to be walking in the same direction and aligned in our steps and in our processes. And that comes from communication. And that comes from having a shared purpose and then aligning everyone to it. So when the right hand doesn't know what the left hand is doing because they don't know what they're doing, because nobody knows what they're doing, there is not a shared purpose. You can't win. If we can all agree that we're trying to score a touchdown and what a touchdown looks like, there's a line over there. We need to get the football across that line. Then the only thing we've got to fight through is what the most efficient way to get that ball across that line is. That we have a shared purpose. It's a clear goal that we're all aligned to. And then the fifth enemy of unity is sanctioned incompetence. This comes from my friend John Maxwell. And it's a really nice phrase, sanctioned incompetence. What it means is when you are a weak leader and you allow people to continually not do their work for whatever reason, you give everyone else permission to not do their work and to not be unified because they don't have respect for that person that's not doing their work, and they don't have respect for you as a leader because you're weak. You're not willing to step into the conflict and require excellence of the team. And when you're not willing to do that, when you're willing to go along to get along, well, so-and-so gets a pass because they're a friend. Well, you're screwed. That you're not going to have team unity around that. Team unity comes when we expect excellence of ourselves and of everyone around us consistently all the time. The only exception to that is if someone's going through a hard personal time, their child is ill. Well, they're not going to be excellent when their child is ill. And you're giving that person grace. And someone comes to you and says, well, so-and-so's not pulling their weight. Yeah, I know. But they've got a personal issue at home, and we're giving them some grace. So we've all got to cover for them right now and then when they get past this thing, then they'll be back in the harness again with us. But right now we're picking up their slack. That's not sanctioned incompetence. That's grace. Sanctioned incompetence is when I'm too weak-kneed, too wussified to face the person that's not doing their job and call them out in a kind way, in a very clear way and have the uncomfortable conversations to say, you have got to get aligned to excellence again, or you're not going to be here. And that's a process too. So those are the 5 enemies of unity. When you toss them over the wall outside your organization, well, then you're going to start to see unity occur. When you've got good communication instead of poor communication, when you've got no gossip, when there aren't unresolved disagreements, when we learn how to do conflict well and come to a good mental health organizationally, we have a very clear shared purpose, and when the leadership is not wussified and they are actually addressing incompetence for whatever reason other than a grace pass on something, when you do those 5 things, you're going to see the whole air change inside your organization. That's how it works. The 5 enemies of unity must be removed.